you've blown out 7 accounts, you've tried a lot of different entries and exits. You know what I mean? Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this.
Hey, Hugh. So I heard from a trader today, and he has a question about trend trading, but I think it's a little bit deeper than that. He says, I have lost at least 7 accounts, and I need to understand that the market is very difficult for me. What I should look for, and I'm looking for the trend. I can identify the trend, and I can identify trend lines. I can identify the candlesticks I need to see, but then I blink at the chart for hours, and I don't know what to do. I also look at news, and I cannot trade with that. And he's saying that he has he can see the trends, but he doesn't have a system where he doesn't know where to get in and where to get out. So this is where he's at. Any thoughts on this? On what he should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, again, like with all these questions, it's really guessing at what the real question is, right? But the first impression that I get out of that is, well, you've blown out 7 accounts. That's actually kind of a good thing, because you realize that something's not working, right? That's a good place to be, honestly. And also, it seems like he's looking at things in hindsight. So he can see the trend in hindsight, but he hasn't really developed a system to take advantage of that. So maybe you can draw a really nice trend line after you look back at a bunch of data, but like looking forward on a trend line is actually kind of difficult to do, right? So number one, I would say get a system. You need to develop a system, create some sort of criteria for entering and exiting the trades, because it seems like he's just looking at the chart and trying to like play it freestyle and say, oh, that looks like a good place to get in. Whereas if you had some sort of moving average, or you had some sort of support and resistance level that you could play, that would be a lot easier to know when to enter and when not to enter. And kind of take it from there. I think that it's a good awareness also that you know that you haven't been able to identify it correctly, and that you're sitting there staring at the chart doing nothing. And I've done that a lot, in the past. I've tried to like invent trades or whatever, and obviously that doesn't work. But yeah, I think it's all about now sitting down, writing down a system, testing it out, and then trying to improve on that, seeing what other people are doing. If you want to trend trade, then like look for other trading traders and see what they're doing, and then try to incorporate that into your own method. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Well, I feel like he's got a lot of inputs, and he just doesn't know what to pay attention to. Like he's saying, what do I look for with the trend? I'm looking at these candlesticks. I can identify the trend, but then I don't know about the news. I don't know how to incorporate that. You know what I mean? And then he says he doesn't have an entry and exit. My guess is if you've blown out 7 accounts, you've tried a lot of different entries and exits. You know what I mean? Like you've just, so it's not that he's never heard of rules or whatever. He's definitely toyed with some strategies, but I think the biggest thing I would say, and this goes for anyone who's kind of at that stage where you like he says, like I just blink at the chart for hours and he doesn't know what to do. That is a sign of like being ill prepared, I believe. So, from my point of view, if you're ill prepared, if you don't have confidence in what you're doing, that just means that, you didn't do the work, right? So like if you think about anyone, like if you're in a job interview and you go to the job interview and you're very nervous, that could be because you feel like, they might ask you questions that you don't know the answer to, right? Or if you go like, oh, here's a good, like if you go to defend your dissertation or your master's thesis, right? Then there's a committee, like at least in the US, there's like this committee of professors, and they've read through all of your work and they've marked it all up, and they ask you questions, really difficult questions about, why did you do this? Did you think about this? And what about that? And isn't this an alternative explanation? So if you're ill prepared for those questions, you're going to be really nervous, right? And it's the same thing with trading. Like if you're trading and you don't know what to do, to me, that means you haven't done like your back testing. You haven't done your testing where you've seen this sort of thing before. And it's just like anything. If you have prepared for it, then you'll know when it happens, okay, this is what I need to do, right?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it's a case of just sitting there and trying to invent a trade. And if you're sitting there for a while and nothing's coming, then you're not prepared totally.
Yeah. I mean, you do a lot of preparation, right? Like you've probably, I mean, the good news is, well, I want to assume, but for me, like I'll do a lot of tests and I will get really good ideas or what I think are really good ideas, piecing things together. And then I'll go back and test them and they're total crap. And so I know
Yeah.
if they're total crap at the testing phase, then there's no way I'm going to move it to a live account, right? Even if it's a small live account, like it dies there. And a lot of them will die there.
Mhm.
But, and, you know, you might be able to tweak the exit or do something, you know, to make it better. But I don't know about you, but like that gives me confidence just knowing that my trading systems have to go through so many hoops and they have to go over these hurdles and get to the point where it even, you know, graduates to like a standard live account. You know, that doesn't happen for so many, because you can, and even you can have a really good back testing session or sessions and you have this data and you're like, oh yeah, this looks really great. And then you go live on a small account and it's not really that good. And there's something, you know, whether it was the spread or slippage, you know, it happens a lot on the lower time frames. You're just not sure like what, you know, is this still going to work? You know, it's always going to be not as good, you know, or at least for me, it's typically been not as good when you go live. So I don't know. I just find it fascinating that in every other thing, like if you want to be an opera singer or a soccer player or a musician, you know, or an artist, like you have to put so much work in. Even if you want to be like a salesman, you know, a really good salesman, they're always like listening to like, you know,
That's a tough job.
motivational. Yeah, it's a tough job. Yeah, totally. But but here we go with trading. We're supposed to just sit down and boom, we know what to do right away. You know what I mean? Like that's it's not like that. It's, I mean, that's whoever's telling you that is lying to you. It's work.
Yeah.
It really is. It's work like anything else. It's just the difference is, you know, it's like owning a business or like a store that makes widgets. Once you figure out how to make the widgets and build the business, then you can kind of scale up. And that's the same with trading, right? Once you kind of figure out your strategies, it is cool because you can scale up and you actually get paid for making decisions and not for like getting paid by the hour or whatever. So that's cool in that sense, but there's still a lot of work in the beginning that you can't get around. Just like if I were to build a tire store, there's so much work that goes into, you know, sourcing my tires and getting my staff and finding the warehouse or whatever, you know, the business, like all that stuff, the advertising, you know, I have to do all that stuff just like, and it's the same with trading. It's no different. It's just different types of work. It's just thinking and typing and, you know what I mean? Like spreadsheets and, you know, that's what it is. So,
and that's ultimately, I think you've hit upon the key to this whole thing, right? Is because people see a YouTube video or whatever, and they're like, oh, that looks like it works. They look at the chart for 5 minutes and like, oh yeah, that should work. And then they put it in and then they realize, oh no, I need to work on this. I need to figure out how many times the London breakout actually breaks out, right? And that's where a lot of people stop. And then they try to like lean on these YouTube videos that say, oh, we tested this 100 times and, you know, 100 times is the magic number. And that means that this works. Well, if it's 100 times on the 15-minute chart, that's, you know, like a couple weeks or whatever, right? So you got to really be aware of what you're looking at. And then, ultimately it does come down to putting in the work and putting in not just the work, but like conscious work. Like, is it something that makes sense to you? Is it a tweak or a take profit or something that makes sense to you and you could trade that, right? And I think that's where a lot of people fall down. And that goes for anything else, like you said, like sports or, you know, music or whatever it is. So you really have to have like a goal in mind, and or you need to really love doing that type of thing, like figuring out these little tweaks to make a trading system work. And I think if you don't have those two things, then it's really hard to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like you say, like if you're testing the 15-minute charts over, you know, 12 days or whatever, there's a fair chance that you've missed on a lot of the different types of markets that you're going to have to ride out with that strategy. Or like these guys on the YouTube, they'll do it on like Bitcoin 2016 or something, you know what I mean? Or what, you know, or they'll just do Tesla stock, 2018 or, you know, something like that. And you're like, man, I'd really love to see what this looks like on the euro, the pound yen, and Ethereum, or you know what I mean, like, oh, and like in 2004, 2008, 2012, like you say, you just need to make sure you have a really good chunk of data that's different types of markets, and that's overlooked. Like, I've seen some really good traders make that mistake because they've optimized their strategy on an unusual time period in the markets. And actually, this year, as we record this in 2022, this year we had some exceptional trends in like March and May and things like that, where you don't normally like that. I mean, those happen more often than you would think, but they're not something that happens every 3 years. It's more drawn out than that. That you would get these major moves, like thousands of pips on the forex market. So yeah, so if you're optimizing something on these data from this year, you can be in real trouble. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Walter.
Thanks.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.